I'm Carrie Morris. I'm here to talk to you all about how to help get those pit bull type blocky-headed dogs that tend to stick around for longer than we'd like them to, how to help get them out of your shelters a little bit faster and get them out and never see them again. So the Canine Good Citizen, when I first started APA and we brought this program in, I was like, CGC, what is that? I had no idea, never heard of it before. So I'm sure some of you have heard of it, some of you haven't. It's been around for over 25 years. It is a program that the AKC developed, you know, AKC, fluffy dogs, show dogs, that kind of thing. They developed it as a program to help build the bond between owner and dog. It's just basic obedience stuff like sit, down, walking nicely on leash, coming when called. So for the shelter dog, what we developed was teaching the dog those same skills. Obviously, there's not an owner there, but we can still train the dog all of those skills, and they are actually still tested by an AKC evaluator. In our shelter, it's myself. You don't have to have an AKC evaluator to have this program in your shelter, but it's pretty easy if you have a shelter worker that's been around for a while to have them get that evaluator status, so definitely something cool to do. And it's mainly about just running the dog through those 10 tests and making sure that the dog can perform all of those skills really, really well. So when they are tested in shelter, they are not actually certified. If they can pass those 10 tests, we just consider them as CGC ready, meaning we know that they can do those skills, but I'm not going to certify a dog in the shelter because I'm not adopting that dog. I would have way too many dogs if I adopted every dog. So we want to encourage their adopters to bring the dog back and come. We can offer post-adoption training support to all of our adopters, and they can actually come back in, learn everything that their dog knows, and have them certified if they're interested. Sometimes they're not. They just want to know all those things, and we never see them again. Sometimes they go all the way through certification. So lots of options for the adopters. And I'm the evaluator at our shelter, so I can kind of run all the volunteers and the adopted dogs through all of these skills. Okay, so why target the adult pit bull type dog? So it's not because pit bulls are bad dogs and we have to teach them things to make them adoptable. It's mainly because we all know they tend to sit in the shelter a little bit longer. There's all those nasty misconceptions out there. There's all these stereotypes, and just they get a bad rap in a lot of places. So we tend to see them sit in shelters longer than, you know, those purebred border collies and labs and all these fluffy things. So we mainly wanted to take our longest length of stay breed and see if we could give them these skills, we could give them the AKC name, if we could teach them all these things, if we could get them out of the shelter faster. So cut that length of stay and also decrease the possibility of them being returned to us. So through Best Friends Animal Society, they brought it to us and were like, hey, we're going to help you guys out to see if you can bring this program into your shelter and see if you can prove these stats. And what we learned pretty quickly was, heck yes, we can. Heck yes, we can get these dogs out of here in a shorter length of stay, and most of them stayed out of the shelter. So again, designed for length of stay. If for some reason you have one of those shelters that you're like, hey, I have beagles that last for a really long time, there's just an overpopulation of beagles, then that's going to be your target breed. But just picking that breed that tends to stay in your shelter longer so that you can help get the breed most in need out of there. Okay, so requirements. Here's a short little video to help show you kind of what we're looking for.
Good girl.
So our Canine Good Citizen dogs in shelter need to be people friendly. They don't necessarily have to be Girl Scout troop friendly, but they need to like people. So one of the tests of the CGC is a friendly stranger greeting, where somebody new to the dog is going to barrel up to you, shake your hand, ask to pet your dog, and then squish the crap out of them. Start petting them, touch their ears, pick up their paws, and offer a brush and brush the dog. So I know that not every single shelter dog is going to love that and think that that is just fun. But for the CGC-Ready program, those are the dogs I'm going to focus on, the dogs that are going to like that, even sometimes like that a little too much, so that I can teach them, like, yes, you can love people, but be calm about it until I tell you it's party time. So picking those dogs. Also picking dogs that are eager to learn. If you have a dog that thinks training is the worst and doesn't like it, why force them to be in that? It has to be those dogs that are like, yes, I love this. So you can also help get dogs churning and burning through the program, get dogs that want to learn, and help get them through the program learning the 10 tests. So dogs with defensive aggression, aversion towards people. We even go as far as territorial aggression. So We've all probably experienced those territorial dogs that love all the people in the shelter. They go home and all of a sudden they're like, this is my house, nobody come in here. So we don't focus on those dogs because we want to be able to send those dogs out into the public and really represent our program, really be those true CGC dogs. Not we're like, yeah, this dog's bitten 10 people, but here you go, CGC ready. And then all of a sudden these things are popping up. We don't want to do that. We want to make sure that people know when they're adopting a CGC ready dog from our program or even a CGC trainee, that they're going to be that dog that likes people, that wants to interact with people. That doesn't mean that I have to have dogs that necessarily like dogs, though. I tend to sometimes even focus on the dogs that don't like dogs. Malik over here does not like dogs, but he loves people. So what I want to prove is if I have a dog that doesn't like other dogs, doesn't mean that you have to have them hidden in your house and you can't go out in public and have that true city dog. What I want to do is just teach them the skills to be able to hold it together around all of those dogs and be able to like, he doesn't like dogs, but I can still have a conversation with you with your dog over here. Yours is probably going to be acting like a hooligan. Mine's going to be sitting nice and pretty. So definitely picking the right dogs that are going to fit into that program. So training principles. I'm not going to get way heavily in depth in this because this is kind of just the way that we train our dogs. It's not the only way of the world, but it is a way that we've found to train the dogs and have the most generalization for those dogs. So it's not relationship based. If I train the dog how I say sit and how I hand command and how I offer them food, and then I hand them over to 3 other people and the dog looks like, when I say sit, looks at me like I said banana, that's not super helpful. I want the dogs to be able to generalize. So it's not just about me teaching that dog. It needs to be able to teach the dog the skills so that they can generalize and have everybody, every time they ask them to sit, the dog's gonna sit. So we're also not positive only. We go and we do all forms of training. So it's not just clicker and heavy food. We have to figure out what works for the dog because sometimes our dogs don't like food. Sometimes we have to expand on the way that we train dogs. So we do hit all 4 quadrants of learning, and we want to do what we can to reach every dog and save as many as possible. So a little bit more of getting into the training here. So we train all on a pressure and release based system. So that's what helps us generalize. Pressure and release on the collar is kind of in its own a reward and correction based principle. So we can use that to, again, reach every dog and help generalize. So we should have a little like mirror so that everybody can see what he's doing right now. I hear you. So we use rewards, we use corrections. So rewards things, not every dog works for food. Sometimes dogs don't really like food, especially when you're in a stressful shelter environment. You go to hand them a milk bone and they're like, I don't like that. I don't really want that. So figuring out what really gets that dog excited and working. We've even had one dog that she didn't like anything that her trainer offered her. Pets, that's okay. Toys, no thank you. Food, I don't really care. So I told him to raid his refrigerator. Go get everything that's not going to kill a dog, bring it in, and let's see what she gets excited about. Turns out it was just something as simple as a little bit of turkey out of the refrigerator. So figuring out what drives your dog to work. So all kinds of things, food, toys, petting, praise. So getting into the corrections, we do use things like aversives, a squirt bottle, a shake can, because when a dog is jumping up on you and you're trying to get them to be calm during petting and things like that, using things just like little puppy training with a water squirt bottle, using things to tell them like, hey, buddy, that's not what I'd like for you to do. So timeouts, even leash corrections if we need to go that route. But that gets kind of funny because sometimes a correction can actually end up being a reward. I'm sure some of you have experienced when you go to squirt a dog and they're like, yeah, they're drinking it and they're partying in it. Is that still a correction? Nope. All of a sudden we're positively reinforcing that behavior and it becomes a reward. So what is your dog telling you? Your dog's telling you, I love squirt bottles? Okay, maybe I'm going to move to a penny can. So, doing what you can to really tell your dog, yes, that is what I want. No, I don't want that. Okay. So earning the CGC Ready status. The dogs are worked by both staff and volunteer in a weekly class and on their own time. So when we first started out, it was one staff member and a couple of key volunteers. From there, we have 2 staff members for the CGC-Ready program and about 25 volunteers. So we've really, really expanded. But in the beginning, I don't say go get every single volunteer you have, every single staff member you have, and let's do CGC. Start out small, really get it exciting, really get it solid, make sure that these dogs are really getting trained really well, and we're doing everything right. Then you can get that really good excitement and get that snowball effect and really bolster your program. So start out small. So we do classes right now 2 times a week, and we run in a 6-week round of classes. In the beginning, it was just 1 class for 1 class a week, so start out small again. It doesn't have to be this huge, big thing. You really want to start out kind of low-key under the radar and getting everything really good and solid, and then going from there. So the classes teach the volunteers how to work their dogs through the 10 tests of the CGC during a 6-week period. So there's 10 tests. Obviously, we're able to squish some of those tests into 1 week. So the first 3 tests actually all fit into just 1 friendly stranger greeting. So you can smush that into 1 week. So also, I'm not saying everybody has to have a 6-week round of classes. Figuring out, again, what works best for y'all. If you're like, I can't have a class, I just have a few staff members, that's fine. You guys can just work together with your staff members. So the dogs are marketed as in training until they reach ready status. So still getting that marketing for all those dogs the second they join the program. So we're not waiting the 6 weeks and hoping they're ready to pass the test. I actually don't expect the dogs to be able to pass the test in 6 weeks. It's mainly just teaching the volunteers all the skills that are needed to pass those 10 tests in that 6-week period. Because also, most of the time, especially right now, we don't have dogs that make it through that 6 weeks. They come in and week 2, they're adopted, and then the volunteers start with another dog. Sometimes volunteers have 6 dogs for that 6-week program because their dogs keep getting adopted. So it's not really about the dog. It's about just teaching them the skills to then work the dog in their own time to pass through those 10 tests of the CGC. And CGC dogs are also worked at the trail. They're the dogs that the marketing team comes to us and they're like, hey, I have a crowd of 100 people and I need a dog to go to that event. I'm like, hey, I have Malik that can sit in a room full of a whole bunch of people and hold it together. Here you go. And the cool thing is now we can tell everybody that comes in, they're like, I want a dog that can go out and do things, or I want a dog that can come to school with me. Malik's going to be that dog. Now we have that real life experience for him too, that we know he is that true CGC ready dog. And then playgroup. Playgroup and the CGC program go hand in hand. If you have a dog that's sitting in their kennel for 23.5 hours every day and you get them out and you want them to focus on sitting and running through all these skills, it can be pretty tough. So playgroup really is going to let you get to know the dogs. It's going to let the dogs burn their brain and burn their physical energy and get them really, really focused on training. So it's going to make it that much easier for you guys to move these dogs through these programs. Okay, maintaining the CGC ready status. So once a dog has proven that they can pass the CGC test and they've mastered those 10 skill sets, we then don't want to be like, okay, you passed the test, goodbye, and just bloop, put them back in the kennel and never put our hands on them again, because what are they going to do? They're probably going to backslide. They're probably going to be like, wait, I was getting at least 3 hours of training every week and now I'm just sitting in my kennel. Okay, I don't want to do that anymore. So we want to make sure that once we designate them as CGC ready, we're still holding them to that high regard and still making sure that they're fresh on their skills. So there are always those volunteers that are like, I really want to be a part of this program, but I can't commit to working a dog for 3 hours a week, or I can't commit to coming to class, I can't commit to these things, but they have a really good skill level and they want to help. I'm going to be like, okay, go get these dogs out of their kennels. Make sure they're still doing what they're supposed to do. You don't have to have your one specific dog. People can work all these dogs, so they're generalized. So we want to make sure that they're keeping up their skills, and they are truly generalized. So spending at least 1 day a week, I personally will go work with the dogs that I know had a hard time, or a little bit more stubborn, or a little bit more worked up in their kennels, and make sure I'm getting my hands on them, saying like, I know that when a potential adopter comes in and gets that dog out of their kennel and they ask that dog to sit, they're not going to be like, what? And go walk away. I want them to know when they ask that dog to sit, that butt's going to go on that ground. So making sure that we're really following up with the dogs. We have volunteer training classes at our shelter, so lots of opportunities for dogs to get out back in that classroom setting without having to come to CGC class, because I really want CGC class churning and burning, churning and burning. As soon as a dog passes the test, okay, let's get another dog in the program, let's get another dog in the program. So there are other volunteer class opportunities that they're like, hey, I need an easy dog for this. Level 1 is like our first level of training. I need some easy dogs for that. Okay, here's 3 CGC ready dogs, get them in there. Get new people working these dogs so they can see these dogs aren't scary and they know a whole bunch of things. Also, communicating with the staff and volunteers. I don't just focus on one type of dog in the shelter, so I'm not focusing on just the easy, cheesy, squishy, never pulled on leash dogs. And I'm not just focusing on the reactive, crazy pants dogs. I'm focusing on all of them, full spectrum, because all of these pit bull type dogs need the help. So I'm going to focus on all of them. But that being said, the easy, cheesy, squishy dogs sometimes have our lowest level of volunteers, people that haven't had that much training, getting those dogs out. So I want to make sure that everybody knows, hey, that's a CGC dog. Don't just let them bolt out of the kennel. Make sure they're sitting. Make sure they're walking nicely on leash. Don't encourage them to jump all over you, because we want them to not do that. We taught them to not do that. So just making sure that people are kind of still holding them to that high regard. And also, we continue marketing our CGC-Ready dogs. So we have 2 different labels in the shelter, the CGC in Training and the CGC-Ready. So it looks a little bit different with the marketing, but making sure that everybody is marketed. The CGC-Ready just has a little bit bigger of a sign. Volunteers, quality over quantity. So sometimes it's pretty easy to get like really excited and be like, we're starting this program and I want 40 people to come to class. That's a little overwhelming. And you might have people that are like really gung-ho, and you assign them at a dog and then you never see them again. And you're like, wait, are you actually working this dog? So picking a specific group that's really going to be dedicated, that's really going to be able to put in the time and make sure that dogs are actually working on these skills and passing the test. If you have people that come up and they just want to work the dog like once a week, and you have all these dogs in training for 6 months, not that useful. So making sure that you're getting that core group that's super dedicated to making this program a success. So the CGC program for the volunteers, it offers opportunities for growth and continued training in invested volunteers. So it really gets them a dedicated program. Also, the cool thing about the CGC-Ready program is it has that end goal. It has that test. And so people really like that. If you're just like train dogs and teach them sit, it's like, that's cool, but it gets a little boring. We all kind of have that like go-getter personality where we're like, yeah, but I want to pass that test. I want to celebrate that one day. I want to be like, hey, the 10 tests have passed. We all know it gets really stressful when you're taking the test, but like the excitement when your dog finally passes is like this huge relief, and there's like, you get this adrenaline rush, and it's just really exciting. And then you get blasted all over social media. You get to hang a sign on your dog's kennel. So it's really cool, it's really exciting, and it gives them something to work towards. So it kind of keeps them really, really invested and involved, because they have to come to class. They have that one dog that they're dedicated to getting them through and passing that test. Also, there's nothing better than the days that I come in and I find in one of our training rooms for my volunteers just working on their own time, because some of the tests you have to do things together. There's one where we call it a CGC handshake, where a person and a dog is on one side of the room and a person and another dog on the other. They have to walk to be about this close and shake each other's hand. So that's kind of hard to practice by yourself. So they have to get engaged and they have to kind of become a family and work with each other. So it really gives them this little family, this little tight-knit group of volunteers. So again, CGC training classes, and the volunteers also become personally attached to these dogs. So they're going to be more likely to want to market them on their own, and more likely to take them on sleepovers and field trips and find out more about the dog. And so that's just another big thing about having your volunteers really involved. So I'm going to give myself time to breathe, and I'm going to play a couple videos. So making class fun, getting everyone involved. This is Friendly Stranger Day, probably our favorite day of the CGC class. So fun things, and also that's a huge opportunity to get other people involved. So volunteers that aren't part of the CGC program, I do every week that we're doing the Friendly Stranger, I do a huge blast of like, do you want to know about this program? Do you want to pet some cute dogs? Do you want to meet some new people? Come to Friendly Stranger Day, touch all the dogs. So it really gets people excited. Also, keep it fun. Class can get really, really boring. So you go through the 6-week round of classes, and then after that you can work the dogs on your own, or you can continue to come to class. Most volunteers continue to come to class. So coming to like 10 weeks of week 1 gets kind of boring. So we like to keep it fun, keep it entertaining. This is a day that we did relay races. So you can see there's probably about 12 dogs out there all running through things. They're working on left-hand circles, right-hand circles, sits, down, walking nicely on leash. So keeping it interesting, really keep getting the volunteers excited about coming to class. So marketing the CGC. So if you have this amazing program and these dogs that are doing all this training, but nobody knows about it, not that useful. So you have to really, really market it. And I'm not expecting everybody to have this fancy smancy professional marketing, but just have something that says like, hey, this dog's doing something special. Even if nobody has an idea of what CGC is, if this dog's kennel looks different than the 100 other kennels, they're gonna ask, what does that mean? Why does that dog have that sign? What's going on here? I wanna know about that. So getting some marketing. So we kind of started from just scraps around the shelter. Marion, who's out there somewhere, got this program started some years ago and literally just wandered around the shelter and found pieces of board and chains and crawled up on the top of the kennels and hung some signs up. So even if it's you don't have the signs ready and your dog passes its first test, go find something, go paint something, go do some arts and crafts and get a sign on that dog's kennel, because if the dog is not labeled as what it's done, people don't know about it. Then, once you get all that going, then you can get to the fancy smancy stuff. So we got vests made a couple years into it so that when we did these field trips and we got these dogs out in public, people could ask, what does that mean? What does Canine Good Citizen in Training mean? I usually see dogs that just say, adopt me, or service dog. It's something kind of interesting that not everybody's heard of. So we can go and prance these dogs around in public and people can ask about it. We can open that conversation. And then this is just like a little poster and social media blast that you can do. So even if people don't know what CGC-Ready means, it says up there, no, sit, down, come. People at least know, oh, that dog knows these things. I don't know what that word means, but I know that this dog knows these things. And so doing some kind of poster or corkboard or something that lists all the dogs that are in the program. So this, when you walk into our main building, you can see there's kind of an iPad right there. This is pretty much, they walk in and boom, it's right there. And people have to sign in on that iPad. So as they're signing in, they might look at those really cute pictures and be more inclined to ask about it. I also have all the tests listed out and things of that nature. So it just gives them a face to a name, so for the program and the dog. So it kind of helps to guide people to, hey, you want to ask about these dogs. These dogs are doing something really cool. Social media, we all know about Facebook. Get this stuff on Facebook. Even if you don't have your own Facebook page, poke at your marketing team and be like, hey, put this on our main Facebook page, put this on our Instagram, put this on our website. Get this out here. We're doing something really, really cool to help our dogs get out of here, and people want to know about it. And of course, get good photos. Nobody wants to see those sad photos of dogs in their kennels with like bars and they're all curled up on their bed. They want to see cute, happy, excited, people-friendly dogs. So get good photos to market these dogs. And where are we going now? Okay, challenges of the Canine Good Citizen. So that girl is Tank Girl. She's actually getting adopted today by her foster, one of our longest stay dogs. So challenges do arise. Things are squished there. I apologize for that. So sometimes dogs, they go to Friendly Stranger Day. Somebody comes and wants to squish them, and they're like, no, thank you. Or the dog goes home and comes back with some new information. It's like, yeah, this dog was really great in the shelter, but was pretty dang territorial once we got her home. So unfortunately, we don't want to act like that didn't happen. Be like, yeah, that dog wasn't good with her or him or her, but good with everybody else, so we'll keep marketing them as CGC. We really want to know that we're sending out the dogs that we can really put that name behind. So unfortunately, if dogs do display some of those behaviors, sometimes it's just shelter abuse. Sometimes these dogs are in the shelter for a year, and they may be good. We know that they eventually might shut down in the shelter, so they might need to take a step back and be removed from the program for a while. So unfortunately, at that point, we do have to remove them from CGC marketing. Doesn't mean that they have to stop training. It doesn't mean I'm going to yell at the volunteer for still taking that dog out and working with it. I'm probably going to strong arm them into taking another CGC dog while they still work with that dog. But we do have to remove them from having that CGC name on them because we want to hold that to the highest regard. But we do want to create a program in marketing for the dogs that aren't in the CGC program. So we don't want to be like, okay, you go back in your kennel and you just get to sit there. So we want to give them another option. So what we created was another option. So our Top Dog program. This is APA's unique total obedience program. So what we wanted to do was we wanted to be able to give this huge part of our population, because kind of what we've seen as when we were at that 92-95% save rate, we had all kinds of pit bull type dogs that were friendly with people. They were just usually those like frat guys that wanted to jump all over people and had no rules and no boundaries. So what we wanted, but when we got up to that 99% save rate that we're at now, we were getting a lot less of those frat guys and a lot more of dogs that were just a little bit more quirky. So we ended up seeing, when we did get a lot of those people-friendly pitties, they were getting out of there really, really fast. They were leaving the shelter. So then we saw that we had this huge chunk of our population that couldn't be part of CGC for various reasons. So we wanted to create a program for those dogs that we could still market them close to the same light as CGC, just a little bit more quirky, but bring them into the same classroom setting, still have them have a test and an end goal that they are working towards. We just tweaked a few of the CGC tests because most of those dogs are dogs that aren't going to enjoy somebody coming up and petting all over them. So we tweaked that test. We took the petting part out of it. We taught the dog what we call a replacement behavior. Person approaching, they're not going to reach for the dog, they're not going to reach for the person, they're just going to walk up and the dog's going to give the person eye contact and the person's going to move away. We also taught them place, just because that's really useful. So we were able to integrate all of those skills right into CGC class. So our CGC dogs and our top dogs work right next to each other in the same classroom setting. So it enabled us to be able to touch more dogs in our shelter and get more dogs adopted. So they attend the same class. They're marketed pretty much the same way. It just is going to say top dog in training or top dog ready. Again, they're still working towards passing a test and all that good jazz. So some statistics. I'm going to go through this pretty quickly as well, just because I don't like to talk numbers that much. So in the first year, we needed a group to compare it to. So Marion created a control group. So we were able to go through and pick out a bunch of pit bull type dogs that, while they could be in the program, we needed something to compare. So we created a control group, and then we had our Canine Good Citizen Ready, or our Canine Good Citizen Trainee dogs. So what we saw in that first year is the rate of return, that CGC dogs were almost 3 times less likely to be returned. So in that control group, 20% of those dogs were returned. Only 7% of those dogs were those CGC dogs were returned, and most of the time it wasn't for behavior stuff. Most of the time it was those really annoying things like people moved or change in lifestyle or I don't have time for this dog. So for adoption rates, we also saw that the CGC dogs were 3 times, they got out of the shelter 3 times faster. So really cool numbers. Average length of stay, 41 days for the CGC dogs, 200 days for the non-CGC dogs for that control group. So that's a huge number. 80% shorter length of stay for our CGC pit bull type dogs. So huge, huge difference that we saw in the first year. So moving on to the second year, we got rid of the control group. So now we were like, let's just compare all the other blocky-headed pit bull type dogs in the shelter to the Canine Good Citizen trainees. And what we saw, pretty similar, pretty stellar numbers still. Again, 20% higher adoption rate for those. 95% of the Canine Good Citizen dogs got out of there in that year. They were 7 times less likely to be returned, so only 4% of the Canine Good Citizen dogs got returned. And the average length of stay was 41 days compared to 170 days. So again, huge, huge numbers for those dogs. Sitting around for 170 days, that's a long time. 41 days, that's a month and a half, no big deal. That's a 6-week round of class. Get them out of here. So really cool numbers to see. So nowadays, it's about, 5 years since we started the program. Our shelter is very different than it was when we started it, but what you guys are going to be doing is those first 2 years. So you're just getting everything started, and you guys have this huge population of probably some frat guys that are going to be perfect for this program, that you can really get them in and get them out and get those numbers going. So nowadays what we're seeing is we have a 12-day length of stay for the CGC-Ready dogs. So that's huge. Even though we have a different population and all kinds of crazy things going on, this program is making a huge effect in our shelter. Average length of stay for pit bull type dogs after they've started CGC training, 43 days. So again, keeping with the same numbers still, 4 years later. So in this year, in 2017, we've had 94 CGC affected dogs. So CGC affected is kind of a new term we're using. It just means that the dog has started training, because we don't see as many dogs actually pass the test, because most of the time they get adopted before they can pass the test. They get adopted in a couple of weeks. So as long as they've started training, we put them in the statistics, and most of the time they still are knowing a lot of those skills. They might not have just perfected everything. And so for the top dog program, in our first inaugural year, we've had 103 top dogs enter the program. So huge numbers of dogs being worked. Right now, we have 75 CGC and top dogs that are being actively worked by volunteers. So big numbers of dogs getting some form of training. And also, we've had 12 CGC certifications, so where people have come back for that post-adoption training, learned everything that their dog knows, and tested with me, and passed their CGC certification. So those dogs that are going out to the public as that CGC certified dog. So very exciting things. Also, we have apprenticeships through the Maddie's Life Saving Academy that are now available. I've had 2 of those already come through. And those 2 were on opposite ends of the spectrum. So really successful no-kill shelter, just getting things started. Both of those shelters have fully functioning CGC programs in their shelter now. So don't think, I can never do this in my shelter. The one just getting started shelter, their dogs didn't have equipment. Their dogs didn't have anything. They'd walk in and get a naked dog hollered up, and they still are working them through this program. They're making it work. So you guys can make it work. And if you'd like to apply, that's through maddiesfund.org. And there's also a table out there that has a little card with all the dates and all that. So definitely pick one of those up. So Marquesa here, she is one of those reasons why we have this program. I can't look at you, Lori, it's gonna make me cry. So Marquesa was a dog. She was in the shelter system for over 2 years. She wasn't at our shelter, she was in a separate shelter. And when we pulled her into APA, I was like, this is a perfect CGC dog, super people friendly, really, really sweet dog. I was like, give me, I want that dog. So you can see her intake was March 1st, 2017. She started training that week. Gimme, I want to do it. And then she was adopted less than a month afterwards. So a dog that was in this shelter for 2 years, give her that CGC marketing, she got out of there. And now she's actually CGC certified and working towards being an active service dog for her mom. So really huge, exciting things. Lori, stop it.
Austin is already making waves in the shelter world
for its dedicated approach to life-saving and its modern programs that not only save, but place the more challenging adoption candidates. The Canine Good Citizen Ready Program is no different. The basis of this program is that volunteers and staff, we take these dogs that are untrained or simply overlooked and give them a rock-solid set of obedience. We're trying to show adopters that, hey, you do want this dog, and here's why. In order for a dog to pass through the Canine Good Citizen program, they have to be able to demonstrate the 10 tests of the CGC. Those are as followed.
Test 1. Accepting a friendly stranger.
Hi there.
Hello.
Can I pet your dog?
This test demonstrates that the dog will allow a friendly stranger to approach it and speak to the handler in a natural, everyday situation. Test 2. Sitting politely for petting. This test demonstrates that the dog will allow a friendly stranger to touch it while it is out with its handler. Test 3. Appearance and grooming. This practical test demonstrates that the dog will welcome being groomed and examined. Test 4. Out for a walk, walking on a loose lead. This test demonstrates that the handler is in control of the dog.
Test 5 is demonstrating that your dog can retain control in public places.
Test 6. Sit and down on command and staying in place. This test demonstrates that the dog will respond to the handler's commands to sit and down and will remain in the place commanded by the handler.
Yes. Free.
Test 7. Coming when called. This test demonstrates that the dog will come when called by the handler.
This test demonstrates that your dog will behave politely around other dogs. Free. Yes. Yes.
Two handlers and their dogs approach each other from a distance of about 20 feet, stop and shake hands, and exchange pleasantries, and continue on for about 10 feet.
The dog is confident at all times when faced with common distracting situations.
As an adopter of a CGC dog, not only will you be taking home a well-trained pet, but the outside world will thank you for it as well. From lower pet deposits to therapy or service work, your new pet will have all the foundations to start their brand new future in your forever home.
Okay, so putting it all together again, you saw playgroup there, just such an integral part of this CGC program. So just quickly going to run through a couple of little success stories, and then we'll move on to questions and people touching Malik. So this is Tucker. So Tucker was a dog that he hit the attention list at the city shelter, which used to be the euthanasia list. Now it's just like, hey, this dog needs help, this dog has things. So when they put him on that list, what they said about him was he paced constantly when walking back to kennel, pulled extremely strong and difficult to have him walk away from the kennels. At kennel, pulled hard at the neighboring kennel. Again, very difficult to redirect him to the kennel, putting to attention. Do not feel this dog is appropriate for adoption at this time. It's a pretty big statement for a dog. So when I saw him on that list and he got there and I saw this big smushy dog, I said, give me that dog. We also found out that he was pretty stellar in playgroup too. So a lot of that stuff playgroup took care of. But now let's give him some fine skills. Now that reactivity has cut down a little bit because he's not contained, he doesn't have that stress. So I started working with him, and a couple weeks after I've been working with him, I just videotaped kind of what our progress was. Reactivity here. What I found, really smart dog, very food-driven dog, actually a dog social dog, so when we talk about that reactivity isn't always dog aggression, sometimes it's just frustration. So what I did is I put that video on social media. I put it on Facebook, I put it on our CGC page, it went on our main page, and I pretty much said, look at this awesome, handsome dog and how well he walks on leash. You guys want this dog. And a family came in the next day and said, I want that dog. They did a meet and greet with their dog and adopted this dog within 24 hours of that video going up on our Facebook page. And they're like, hey, I don't really need a CGC dog, but I want to learn everything you taught this dog. Came back in for post-adoption training. So this is actually his adopter handling this dog. So we taught him all the skills, and he continued to just be stellar on leash with his adopter. I'm not going to go to the last video. That's pretty much just him passing his CGC certification. But again, you can see the numbers there. Intake 2/3/16, started CGC very shortly after and was adopted just over a month of entering the CGC program. And then he passed his CGC certification. So very cool to come back with his adopter. And his family couldn't love him anymore, and his adopted brother loves him very much. So another just very special to me dog is Jimbo. So Jimbo was adopted because of the CGC-Ready program, and now he's actually passed his certification. So the face that Jimbo made in his kennel was this face. You would walk up to his kennel. It wasn't aggression. It wasn't just like this crazy defense going on. He just would demand bark. He's like, get me out of this kennel. But when he did it, he bared his teeth at you, and it wasn't very pretty. And people weren't like, I want that one. He's very cute. So we wanted to get him in, get him some good marketing, give people a point of contact where they're not necessarily walking up to his kennel, but they're going to see that cork board. They're going to see the labeling on the website. They're going to see the labeling on Facebook. They're going to see this dog as part of a program and maybe be able to look past that. And so we also started getting him some good marketing and some good cute photos and getting him out in public and really getting him out and flaunting him around, getting him outside of that kennel so that people could see past the teethy Jimbo. And some people did. And he was adopted by two amazing guys and finished his CGC certification. And there we go. So that's Jimbo today. Again, old dude, old teepee dude. He got out of the shelter. Thank you, everybody.